Creation science is the science that ties into the Bible, specifically the Genesis account. It can range from a lot of different things, not only physics and biology, but also some archaeology, literary history, uh, definitely biology, things of that nature. But I just wanted to make a quick video, just kind of an overview of some of the resources that I use to help me understand what the science is that backs up the Bible, especially when it comes to the Genesis account. Now, this is an important issue for creationists, Bible believers specifically, because there has been for well over 200 years a very strong attack against the authenticity, authority, accuracy of the Bible, however you want to put it. The first 5 books of the Bible talk about a vast span of history. We're talking some 3,000 years, pretty close to that. I mean, it pretty much goes from 4000 BC to right around 1440 BC. So quite a long time. And to my knowledge, the Genesis record is the best historical document found anywhere on that topic. There are other documents that do touch on the topic. Josephus has his record. There are, of course, in small bits and pieces, like the Epic of Gilgamesh or the many different flood legends from different cultures around the earth. Off the top of my head, those are the ones I know of. Of course, in the Bible, the book of Job also seems to be, if not necessarily in tandem with most of Genesis history, it may fit in based on the length of the life that Job lived, besides God telling him to look at some of these large dinosaurs that would have been alive shortly after the flood. Besides that, Genesis is the most detailed and accurate, I believe, record of what is often called prehistory. This is, I would argue, a non-word, because there's no such thing as prehistory, that, at least not from a Bible point of view. History starts when God speaks, "Let there be light," when he creates time, space, and matter, and it will continue until God ends this earth at the end of the millennium, if we understand things correctly, when he makes everything new. At any rate, some of the resources that I use. This excellent book exists both in physical form as well as an online form. Obviously, having the physical book to reference is beautiful. There's so much in here, but the online version has the benefit of being updated regularly by Dr. Brown, who put the book together. This is an amazing book to have. In similar fashion, the way Dr. Brown goes over all kinds of issues in science related to supporting the creationist point of view. This book also, by Vance Farrell, I believe. Yep, Vance Farrell, is an amazing compendium, sort of a, it's called an Evolution Handbook. It's like the Bible for creation science in the way it has just so much all together on everything. To give you an example, it has a chapter on DNA and protein, a chapter on evolutionary science and fiction, chapters on fossils, strata, ancient man, utterly impossible, the latest evolutionary crises, vestigial recapitulation, evolutionary showcases, the laws of nature, Scopes trial, the 5 redshift spectra, Australopithecines, ecological zonation. I think you get the picture. It's got a lot in it, so these 2 books are definitely some powerful tools to have. But probably most premier, at least that I've seen, in the creation science world, again, because of the amount of data that he goes over, Dr. Hovind's Creation Science Seminar is an amazing find to have. It's a 7 seminar. Let's see. Are the numbers in here? Well, I guess it's a 6 seminars, but then he includes 2 DVDs which are fairly lengthy, where he answers questions and answers related to the Bible, Genesis, creation, science. So this seminar is one of the best out there to have. Of course, Ken Ham also has a seminar on this topic. He focuses more on the theology and the philosophy of creation science in the Bible. Also does an amazing job, so definitely recommend his series. And some of the other books that I have and that I definitely recommend would be Lee Strobel's A Case for a Creator. Recently, Eric Hovind came out with, this is the one, Genesis, Paradise Lost. This has a nice overview of the story with the benefit of also just giving you a good demonstration in 3D of what might have looked like the creation, but it just goes over both some of the science behind creation and support of the Bible against evolution, and also some of the philosophy underpinning. This one is Genesis History, does a very in-depth job. It's basically a documentary of interviews with experts in their fields, explaining and showing firsthand in Blu-ray the science right here on the earth that goes against the evolutionary Darwinian paradigm. Another amazing book is this one, which you can also find a copy of online. I think there's an online version. There's a DVD that goes along with this. Definitely highly recommend it. I believe, yep, I do. I have a copy of it here. So you can get the book or the DVD. And this, again, does an amazing job. What they focus on, based on the name there, as you see, is just the privileged position our planet has. The number of different scientific things that must have gotten together in order for our Earth, according to evolutionary theory, to have by chance created life. It's ridiculous to really assume, I think anyways, that all these things just came about by random chance. Again, this book really goes in depth of showing that there's a lot of factors. They focus on 10 of them alone, but there's more than that. I believe they go over some of the others, but the 10 that they focus on, the weak and strong nuclear forces, the water process, things like that, the type of gravity we have, the type of sun. It's just, it really helps demonstrate that this Earth was created for humans by a designer, and it should be fairly obvious. I have a couple of books that focus on specifically the science of the flood and what happened during the flood. I have a handful of DVDs. All of these, of course, I will be linking, putting the details of in the description. So that's kind of the purpose of this sort of video, is to go over these things and say that not only do I approve of these things are amazing, but they help to demonstrate, help you, just give you something you can put your eyes on, in case if you buy them. Proof. I have a cat here. There's a pretty piece of creation. I like to have these things, and I definitely recommend them because they help prove to you that the creation point of view, the belief in the Bible, is very well founded. It's very reasonable. It makes a lot of sense. From what I've seen, the evolutionist argument only makes sense when you telescope it. When they look, I say telescope, maybe microscope is a much better term. They focus in on one issue and they do it often with microbiology. They love to point to microbiology. I've heard so many, from Richard Dawkins to any of the other famous evolutionists of the day. They'll point to microbiology and say, oh, we see change here, we see evolution here, and adaptation and all these different things. But it's a really big jump to try and say that just because we see this bacteria do that doesn't therefore mean that the banana, the hamster, and the whale are all related. This is such a far stretch, and millions of years doesn't help, as some of these resources, definitely this. Dr. Hovind goes over it. Dr. Brown goes over it. Actually, I have another book over there that goes really in depth. Dr. Menko, I believe, a Russian scientist. the dating methods. This is one of the powerful tools, it seems, that the evolutionists use because they're always referencing it. And there's lots of assumptions, even in the Christian world. Some people believe they have to figure out how to fit millions of years in the Bible. No, you don't. Millions of years can't even be proved. And it's, to me, very easy to see with some of these resources how the dating methods are seriously flawed. It's simple. Both potassium argon or carbon-14 dating, any of these kinds of datings, doesn't matter if it's carbon-based life forms or non-organic life forms, the dating methods require 7 different assumptions on the different number of, like, the amount, the daughter elements, the assumption of how much it starts with the carbon. There's all these assumptions they have to make right there off the bat because of the assumptions. It's not science. So none of the dates given in any of these peer-reviewed, modern, otherwise, possibly, I'd like to think, otherwise scientific endeavors by most of the mainstream of academia, when they get into the research and they're out in the field and they're doing their archaeology and they're doing science, they are doing science, but they assume these numbers. They do their tests and it's supposed to be scientific, but they're making these assumptions when they're doing this science of dating. And I would argue it's not science. When they're doing the dating, it's not science. It's a creation, it's a fabrication, it's a compilation of data, and they honestly do pick and choose the numbers they want because you can do it yourself if you have the ability, especially if you're watching this and you happen to be someone who has access to a university lab. You can take a sample of something living or dead, doesn't matter, break it up into 5 different parts, and send the parts in to either 5 different laboratories, 5 different universities, or you could even bag the parts individually and say, these are a sample each from a different thing. And you'd say, oh, that's lying. Maybe, yeah, I guess that would be, but just the point is, if you were to do, that's the frustrating thing, is this entire dating process, they're lying to us, but they don't have the, what is it, character, integrity? I don't know, to tell us the truth about the dating systems. Maybe, hopefully, most of the scientists in the world are ignorant, but it's pretty sad if they are ignorant to the fact that their dating methods are no good. It's a sham. But the point is, if you were to take 5 samplings from the same thing and turn it into different laboratories, because it's been done a number of times, you'll get different dates. And I'm talking hundreds of thousands of years apart. Huge differences. And in some cases, millions of years apart. So the dating is very important because it's used all the time to demonstrate. Many people, again, Christians do it. They assume, oh, there has to be millions of years. We have to explain millions of years. And when they do not have to. And that's one area I focus on it because to me that's an easy way to just discount a whole lot of things and bring it right down to the scientific level of, hey, there's things you can observe, there's things that you can look at when you're talking about erosion rates, when you're talking about phylogeny, when you're talking about anthropology. I don't care what you're talking about. If you're going to take any niche argument and you think that that proves evolution, well, you've got to have an overall basis of proof. That's what creation science has. It doesn't matter which branch of science we look to, be it astronomy, biology, geology, it doesn't matter. We can find proofs that verify the biblical record everywhere. I've not seen this in evolution. Evolution tries to do it, but they always list the same erroneous things. They try to point to these drawn trees of, well, this animal evolved into this, into this. See? That doesn't prove a thing. Somebody drew that. That doesn't prove a thing. Dead bones don't prove very much beyond the fact that something was alive and died and was buried. And then the fact that fossils, they take so long to, they take special circumstances to even be formed. That needs to be considered. lack of evidence of erosion between layers found in geologic strata, the lack of a complete geologic column anywhere on Earth, some of the strata being folded and bent in such ways, polystrata fossils, polystrate fossils that go through several layers. They're fossils and they go through several layers. How in the world does that work? Except, because there is an explanation that fits with the Bible record, no problem, that there was a great catastrophe. There was a huge flood. These layers were created by stratification. Things like this make me look at the Bible and say, yep, I believe that. Besides the rationality of an all-powerful, all-knowing creator putting everything together makes amazing sense. It fits rationality far better than trying to look at nothing exploded, and all of a sudden, not just space full of stuff that comes from nothing, that doesn't even make sense, but let's say somehow that happens. There's an explosion, a big bang, and all of a sudden this matter is there in the universe. Why would you expect that matter to do anything beyond just spread out? Evolutionists expect us to believe that this matter not only appears from nothing, blows up, spreads out across the universe, it then forms stars, and not all the same stars. No. All kinds of different stars. So in other words, there's different processes going on all over the place. Somehow elements are just magically generated from this stuff. And then, around these stars, planets form, and they're not even all spinning in the same direction. We got some spinning in backwards direction. Sometimes we got one planet spinning this way, the moon spinning this way, and another moon spinning that way. We got all kinds of rotational problems with physics and what we understand with physics. Besides this, the origins and the genesis of elements from, again, an explosion from nothing in space. And on top of that, they expect that here on this earth, somehow, not only did we somehow, it's just so many somehows, just watch the videos, YouTube it, go online and watch the videos where the top scientists try to explain the Big Bang Theory. And they'll have fun, entertaining videos where you can go through and they have drawings or pictures or whatever. But they don't have a lot of actual science. They have to admit, somehow, this happened. Maybe, possibly. And sure, yeah, that's nice of them to be honest and say they don't know. But isn't that a problem? When I go to my Bible, when I examine my Bible and see a record that's fairly complete, I mean, he doesn't list everything. God hasn't recorded everything, but it's fairly complete in saying, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And then it goes and focuses down on detail and says, hey, in 6 days, he did all of these things. He did it in a certain order. It makes sense, the order, with light coming first, plants, and then the animals, and then man. Plus, if you have this almighty being, a God, who can create things, you automatically just sidestep so many irrationalities, and it does fit in with reason. Some might say that that's unreasonable. I can't help you if you think that's unreasonable, because the alternative is unreasonable. And I'm not aware of any kind of third position. I mean, there might be, but Richard Dawkins has infamously said he'll admit that maybe aliens seeded life. But all that does, if you admit that aliens were the creators, is push the exact same problems back another step. Because it's like, okay, well, where did the aliens come from? Because I've never heard him try and describe the aliens to be anything like God. I mean, he hates God. He thinks God is misogynist and evil and all these kind of things because he picks and chooses passages from the Old Testament out of context. Evolution theory is just bankrupt. It's ridiculous. There's no way I could believe in it. To me, it's irrational. And the proof does not stand the test of examination. And yeah, I'm just a guy who can examine things online. I've not been able to do very much by way of in-the-field research because I'm not an expert. I don't have the ability to, nor the knowledge to do geology, anthropology, and whatnot. But I can use the scientific method and examine documentaries, books, the research that has gone before. And as I understand it, many professionals throughout time and today do this very thing and have proved and can prove a great many things. So why can't I? I've got a good brain. I have access to the internet. Why can't I prove? And I'm arguing that I can. These resources that I'll share with you that are linked below, you can also prove for yourself whether or not creationism, the Bible point of view, actually makes sense.